All right, everyone, if I could have your attention again. My name is Esteban. I work for South by Southwest Gaming. I'm the community liaison, so to speak. South by Southwest has been wanting to connect with the gaming crowd for quite some time, and we're taking the first step forward in that with these South by Southwest Gaming Spotlights. So I'm very glad to see everyone here, some familiar faces, some new faces, and I wanted to go and start with some heavy-hitting news that many have probably heard of today in regards to two panels being canceled at South by Southwest Interactive. They pertain to the whole Gamergate controversy, and we made an official statement online about it, and we just wanted to go ahead and say that if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me personally or to our press website if you have more, you want to write about it or whatever, enterpress@SXSW.com. I'm sure that Patrick may have some other words to say about it, and it's going to be addressed more as the days go on. So just wanted to go ahead and say that on behalf of South by Southwest. Aside from that, I'd like to introduce Patrick Curry. He's a very familiar face here in Austin, very well-known, respectable man who is in charge of Unity Austin, and if you'd like to, never mind. He's going to be giving a talk on the new innovation, experimentation, and luck, and to address the fact that, at least how we saw it, everything, the gaming industry is becoming more accessible, developing games is becoming more accessible, but how do you really break through it all? And I believe that Patrick may have the answer for you. So without further ado, Patrick, if you'd like to come up.
Thank you, Esteban. Thanks, South by Southwest, for having me. Thanks, Capital Factory, for hosting us. So, I'm going to talk about the new. And I swear by the end of this talk, the word new will be said so many times it will lose all meaning and relevance. So bear with me. I'm Patrick. I've done a lot of things over the last 20 years of my career. I've been an entrepreneur. I've started 5 companies. I've helped friends start another 6 or 7, depending on how you count. I've been a game developer, largely. Also been a mentor and teacher. When I lived in Chicago, I taught at DePaul University. I love teaching. I love sharing the little I know with other people, and so that's why I'm here today. But mostly I consider myself a game developer. The thing that I've spent most of my life doing, thinking about, dreaming about, scheming about, has to do with making video games. So as you know, making video games is not easy. It's very difficult. So for every video game up here that I've shipped, I've probably worked on 2 games that have been canceled. And I've worked on a wide range of things. I've worked on flip phone games back when games were black and white and no resolution whatsoever, and all the way to smartphone games. Worked on Awesome Eats here for Whole Foods with some friends of mine here in the audience. Worked on original games. Worked on Subs a Zombie and Guilty Party, right? Brand new, all new characters, all new worlds, all new stories. And also worked on licensed games. So I worked on Stranglehold, which was a John Woo production starring Chow Yun-fat. Fulfilled a lifelong dream working on that game, I have to say. And also worked on Avengers, the whole slate of Avengers video games, which I'll talk more about. And then there's a couple of DePaul creative games up here, Octodad and Devil's Tuning Fork. We'll talk a little bit more about them later too. So now I work for Unity. We've got some Unity Austin nights here. Thanks for coming, guys. Unity has really sparked a revolution in game development. We created the world's most popular game engine. And when I say we, I mean the geniuses in Copenhagen, because they've been at it for 10 years. While I was busy making games and doing my other companies, they've been slowly and steadily creating this really marvelous technology that makes it easy for people to make video games. And now in Austin, they acquired my last company. That's how we became Unity Austin. And now our technology is part of the overall Unity offering, doing things in the cloud. Unity's been used to create some games you've probably heard of, right? These are 3 of my personal favorites. Hearthstone, which is maybe the best mobile game ever created by Blizzard, one of the best video game companies of all time. Monument Valley, which is a beautiful game inspired by MC Escher. It's won almost every award it possibly could. And then Crossy Road, which is this super goofy, infinite Frogger game with like blocky Minecraft style art, and super hugely popular, made by 2 people. And that's really cool. It's really inspiring. And here in Austin, there's some really great games being made in Unity. This is just really part of the diversity of games being made. You have Crowfall, which is an MMO being created by Artcraft, by Gordon and his team. Overland, which is a turn-based apocalyptic survival game in the vein of XCOM. Super beautiful, kind of painterly, watercolored art. And then on the bottom is Spider, Ride of the Shrouded Moon, which is a sequel to my most favorite iPhone game ever, called Spider. Also made by Tiger Style, or that one's made by Tiger Style here in town. Overland's being made by Finji. And if you'll bear with me, I want to show you a video that just shows you a bunch of games being made in Unity. We just had a worldwide conference. And so this is our montage of games that are being made in our engine, just to look at the ridiculous breadth of games and cool stuff that's being made in our medium. Thanks. Tonight's talk is not a giant ad for Unity. It just happened that we had a couple really great videos on our website, pre-edited with music that I didn't have to make myself. Let's not play the video again. There we go. All right, but because of tools and technologies like Unity, making games is easier than before, right? You saw just vast creative and visual variety, and hopefully some gameplay variety too there. That's really hard to achieve when you have to hand code every little line, every little thing. And so taking hard technical problems and solving them for creative people and letting them express themselves in games is what we set out to do. And it's easier than ever before. And because of that, there's more games than ever before. And I don't think this only applies for games. Games happens to be my medium, profession, and passion, but I think it's true for all forms of artwork. It's easier than ever before to be a photographer. You just pull out your iPhone. You want to be a videographer or make a music video. You pull out a GoPro, you upload it to YouTube. Same can be said for websites, poetry, screenplays, almost any art form. And it's just easy. And so I want you to remember, as I talk about games tonight in this talk, you can just replace games with whatever your noun is. if it's haikus, or I don't know. What's something weird you're into? Pinatas. You're gonna regret that, but bear with me. It's easier than ever before to make them. But if you've ever made something and like finished it, like you got it done, you made it, you crossed the finish line, you know the horrible truth, which is that making it is only half the work. In fact, it's maybe a fifth of the work. And if you want to make a living at it, it could be a tenth of the work. And so if your goal is to be a profession, making piñatas, Chris, you know that you make the piñata. And then after that, you have to get people to use your piñatas, stuff them with candy. You have to get people to talk about the piñata. Be like, damn son, did you see that piñata? And then someone's got to like that piñata enough that they're going to give you money for it, so that you can then go back to your shed or your lair, wherever it is you make piñatas, and you go back to step one, right? And that's the cycle. That's the grind. And every job I've had ultimately boils down to this, whether it was websites, graphic design, or video games. And now cloud software, which is what I do for Unity. And if you've ever done this, you also recognize another truth, that making it looks really easy compared to the bottom, which is really, really hard. Really hard. Kind of looks like a Christmas tree. It's not presents at the bottom. I can make there are presents at the bottom, right? That's where the money's at. It's really, really difficult to get to it. And so for the bulk of my talk, I'm going to talk about a really pivotal step in making something, be it video games or piñatas, and that's getting people to talk about what you made. What makes a video game worth talking about? What makes it worth telling your friends about? What makes that piñata so ridiculous that I'm up here telling all of you about it? And I couldn't find a high resolution image of these girls. I feel really bad. But your objective is to have something that when they see it, they just say, oh my God, look at that piñata. And so how do you do that? This is $1 million question. How do you make something that people will talk about? So here's $1 million answer. You make it worth talking about. Duh. It's just that easy, right? You give them something so good, right? That video game is so good, it's so fun, the art is so beautiful, the mechanics are so tight that they have to talk about it. They're like, wow. And not just that, I really believe you have to show them something that they've never seen before. You have to just wow them. You got to walk away and just be like, whoa, I can't believe that. And I have a brand new example of this from today. So my buddy Neil is here, he texted me, he's like, hey, you want to ride to the talk tonight? I'm like, yeah, totally, I hate driving, of course. So Neil pulls up in this thing called a slingshot. And from here, it sort of looks like the front of a Corvette. It's pretty badass. But in the back, it has one wheel, it's a trike. It's sort of like if Batman had a big wheel. Pretty badass. And I saw it, and I was sitting in it, riding over here, and I was like, I have to talk about this. This is crazy. This is so new and so cool looking. I have to put this in my talk, which is about creating things that are new and cool to share. And so, mission accomplished. Here I am giving an advertisement for Slingshot and for Neil because I was so impressed. So that's a little taste. So to sum it up, to make something worth being talked about, it has to be both good and new. I think those are the two really important balances on this scale. Let's talk about things that are good. So this is Michelangelo's David, probably the greatest piece of artwork ever created by a human being, hand carved out of solid marble. Something like 10 feet tall. And I'm not saying I love it, but my son is named David. It's really good. Let's talk about how we make something good on purpose. So, first thing is you have to know what good is. And this is different for everyone. It's different for every field, every genre. What makes for a good piñata is not going to make for a good vehicle or a good video game. And you have to know, like, for yourself and really deeply, like, what is good for you. And I say you have to, like, really hone it, right? Like an expert chef who knows how to taste the perfect soup. And that's just sit on your tongue just right. And I'm not a chef, I'm not even that into cooking. So I can't tell you what makes for a great soup, but a chef knows. And if you corner a chef at a party, you're like, yo, dude, what makes for a good soup? He'll talk to you all night. And he'll just be there salivating, waiting for this soup. Same goes for fashion, right? Whether you're coming at it from Project Runway or Kanye, you have to have a taste level, right? That's sort of the idea that you could measure how good your taste is. How well can you taste soup? Or in my case, extra large pepperoni pizzas with double cheese. Really well. I'm really good at tasting those. And so the same goes for video games or any craft. You have to hone your taste. You have to really think about it and be purposeful in pursuing and exploring things that are good. So, as you play other games, you should know why they're good. And you shouldn't like every popular game. You shouldn't like every game that wins Game of the Year. You should like games that are good because they are good for you. And then think about why, right? It's one thing to say, oh yeah, Mass Effect 2, best game ever, no big deal. But why? Why, Patrick? It's like, well, because they got rid of elevators and they didn't have too much combat and there were some engaging characters I wanted to talk to. And that's why it's better than 3 and 1 and Halo and Gears of War and all those other games. That's why Mass Effect 2 is one of the best games. And then when you look at your own work, I really, really believe you have to know why you're making something, right? If you're pursuing in life to make a good piñata, I'm not gonna drink water while talking again. You have to know why. Why are you making a good piñata? What is it that you want out of the experience? Is that you just love paper mache that much? Or you love the sound of crackling wood bat on confetti paper, as it impacts Tootsie Rolls? Whatever it is, know why you're doing it. And ultimately why it's worth your time. Because we all only have so much time to live. Spoiler alert, we're gonna die. And so you have to be explicit and choose what you're going to make. And so here's my little Uncle Patrick says slide. If you define your goals and you know why you're doing something, you know what you want to get out of it, you can then work with purpose, right? Every time you sit down to do something hard, to fix that bug that's really elusive, or to write that email to the friend who's just not cutting it anymore on the project, or to ask your parents for money because you can't make rent that month, all very difficult things to do. You need to know why. So your goals are gonna give you purpose. And once you have purpose, the beautiful thing is that you can just say, you know what, fuck everything else. I'm gonna focus on my goals and my purpose. Other distractions, get them out of the way, minimize those. Friends who aren't helping you achieve your goals and purpose, they get called a little less often than the people who are showing up in the middle of the night to play your video game and tell you how to make it better. That's how you can get to something good. Now, let's go to the other side of the scale. Young Frankenstein is not new, but it's about a crazy person trying to make something new. Right? Dr. Frankenstein is trying to create a new living being out of dead body parts, which is sort of what we're all trying to do making video games. Taking code and sprites and models and audio effects and music, cramming them all together and trying to shock them with lightning until they wake up and take on a life of their own. So, $1 million question number 2. How do you make something new? Well, I think it's as easy as you know what came before, right? There's the entire history of humans, which we all have memorized, right? Well, at least Wikipedia does, a lot of it. And then you predict what might be next. And to be clear, I stole this idea, straight up, from Stan Lee. So Stan Lee is the co-creator of most of Marvel Comics' characters and worlds, right? All the big ones. Spider-Man, X-Men, Fantastic Four, Avengers. He wrote them, he wrote the words, and the artist created the pictures and drew what they look like, right? Mostly Jack Kirby. And working for Marvel, I had the opportunity to meet Stan. In fact, Neil and I were there in a room, and Stan came out for a creative jam session. And this is like ultra 12-year-old Patrick geek fantasy level stuff, right? There's Stan, and I'm like, dude. And a question that came up was, how did you come up with these ideas? It was a little bit more geeky than that. It was more like, in issue 14 of Fantastic Four, when Dr. Reed Richards meets the Silver Surfer, who is the Herald of Galactus, how did you come up with that? And Stan is, I mean, he's a master, and I'm sure he's gotten asked this question by nerds like us a million times. And so Stan, this is a direct quote, just goes, well, simply thought of what hadn't been written yet, and I wrote it. It's amazing in its simplicity, right? Here's like the dude that defined a genre and arguably defined pop culture for our whole generation. He thought of what hadn't been written. And the reason that he could do that is because he knew what had been written. He had written every single word in Marvel Comics and Timely Comics before that. And they had read every single DC Comics and Atlas Comics and all their competition so they could rip them off. And he knew everything that had been written in comics at that point. And so he was like, well, you know what? We haven't made a comic book about surfer guys made out of silver, or maybe mercury, I don't know, Silver Surfer, I like that, alliteration, boom, right? Something new popped out like that. And so, to remind you, you have to know what came before. And for video games, there's a lot of video games. And video games are long, especially old video games, right? You can't possibly play every single video game. But you can go back and find favorites, right? You can find old games of the year. You can ask your friends, hey, what's your favorite game for the PlayStation 1? And play it. So many games. So many games. But you have to be able to reference what came before to make something new. And then predict what might come next. And I think video games is a really interesting medium to look at because it is so iterative. So iterative. We were talking about this in the office today. What's next in video games is really simple. Like, it's really simple. What comes next? A sequel. You just slap the number 2 on it, and boom, it's out, right? That's it. Sequel, that's what's next, guarantee it. And then after that, people start adding things to ideas, right? Trying to create something new. Okay, we're gonna take a little bit of this, and we're just glom this other thing on. Or they try to subtract. So a famous subtraction design is Shadow of the Colossus. Beautiful game, one of my most favorite games. It's a lot like Zelda. There's an open world, you go around, you do some light puzzles. Actually, there's not many puzzles, just platforming. And then you fight giant boss fights, right? And so it's kind of like Zelda subtracted the puzzles, the gadgets, the enemies, the minions, the heart containers. They subtracted a ton of stuff from that and just took open world, horse, giant, awesome boss fights, right? So that's a successful design through subtraction. And then there's a million examples of combinations. But let's use a really concrete one to review. So one of my most favorite new games that I would even say is new is Rocket League, right? I was just playing it this weekend. Super fun game. How many of y'all have played Rocket League? Show me. All right, about half. Okay, so for those of y'all who haven't played Rocket League, here's the premise. It's soccer with rocket cars. That's it. It's multiplayer, you can play split screen, you can play online, it's on PS4, it's on Steam, it's super fun. I spent a whole night watching strangers play this game at Alamo Drafthouse about a month ago and screaming my lungs out because it was so entertaining to watch. Super fun game. And I hate to spoil it, but I'm here to tell you what's next. First up, sequels. These dudes are making Rocket League 2, right? They cannot make Rocket League 2 fast enough. I don't know if they've announced it or not, but it is coming. Because in our industry, you slap a 2 on something, it usually equals dollars. And then everyone else, maybe some people in this room are like, yo, dog, Rocket League, that's good. They're working on their Rocket League inspired idea, right? So someone out there right now is working on an edition, and it probably goes like this. All right, check it out. Rocket League with guns. Right? Because you can just slap guns on any video game idea and make it better. Right? So right now, someone is making Rocket League with guns. Someone's working on a subtraction. I couldn't come up with a great subtraction for Rocket League. Maybe it's Rocket League without the ball.
That's Demo Derby.
Yeah, Demolition Derby or Twisted Metal, right?
San Francisco Rush.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Take the car into the goal.
Yeah, totally. What if the car is the goal?
Whoa.
And then finally, there's people working on combination ideas, right? There's somebody right now taking Wave Race, an awesome jet skiing game from the Nintendo 64 era, and they're going to combine it with Rocket League. And it's going to be, no, it's not like Rocket League, it's jet skis with a giant ball and goals, like water polo. Yeah, it's happening, right? These things are all happening in our industry as we speak. And it's because they're obvious. They are the obvious next steps. But you guys laughed at a lot of those ideas. The reason that we're laughing is we kind of realize they're ridiculous, right? They're new ideas, right? Jet ski, Rocket League, as fun as it may be, that's not a super new idea anymore. It's definitely not as new and fresh as Rocket League was. And I don't think it could be as successful. We're not going to be like up here giving talks about Wave Race League, because it's not that new. And everyone else is working on things that are a little bit new. So here's a scene from one of my favorite movies. If you can't tell, it's grave diggers digging holes from The Burbs, classic Tom Hanks comedy. And it's up here because you have to dig really deep for new ideas. Ideas that are not obvious, ideas that are not being done by 8 other game studios right this moment around the world. You have to work at it and really, really want to make something new. Just like you have to work at making something good. So what are new ideas? Well, I took the cheap way out here and I said, well, they're not sequels, they're not just additions, they're not subtractions, they're not combinations, right? They're not chocolate and peanut butter, which ultimately just tastes like chocolate and peanut butter, right? New ideas are more like a s'mores, where you have 3 or more flavors, like graham cracker and marshmallow and chocolate. You put them together, and they don't taste like any of those 3 ingredients. They taste like something new. And s'mores are so new, or they were at some point, like in the 1920s or something. But they have their own name, right? That's how new they are. They have their own name. They're s'mores flavored everything. And so, I don't know if this helps us define new ideas, but I can tell you sort of what they're like. When you see it, you should just get it. When I'm like, yo, soccer with rocket cards, you're like, in, bring it, let's play. It seems like it might already exist. It just sort of like clicks something in your brain. You're like, oh, snap. Yes. A piñata filled with Jell-O. Or whatever it is, Chris. I don't know. And it could almost be its own genre, right? Like Rocket League is going to become a genre. It's going to kick off this like sort of action-y sports, and I predict we'll see the trajectory of Rocket League will be very similar to Tony Hawk Pro Skater. Started in the 90s, right? Tony Hawk Pro Skater, super fresh. Oh my God, played that game so much, and then they just ground it out with sequels and spin-offs and gimmicks until it was like a fine dust. So new ideas, when you first hear them, you're like, dang, that could be a whole thing. That could be a whole genre. That could be a whole company. Let's quit our jobs and make that thing right now. All right, so I have a couple examples of games that I think are new. And this is completely subjective, right? There's not like some like, Patrick Curry, new stamp of approval. But these are good examples worth discussing. The first is Minecraft, right? When I first saw Minecraft, I was like, okay, yeah, cool. Voxels are cool. Doesn't this exist? Like, can't you play this? No, like, there wasn't a game that was just like, hey, you're in a world of Legos, and each Lego is 1 meter by 1 meter, and you can build anything you want. Super new idea. Billion-dollar industry, right? That's how new Minecraft was. Guitar Hero. Right? Guitar Hero, like there'd been rhythm games before, but like, was there ever a video game that made you feel like a rock star? And I can't play any musical instruments, but even I felt like I was doing well, to jam out a Kiss song. Guitar Hero spawned another probably billion-dollar industry, bit of a fad maybe, with all the plastic instruments, but it worked. It was a really big deal, and I had a lot of fun with friends coming over to my house just to play Guitar Hero. That's how new it was. I had to talk about it. I had to say, hey, have you played Guitar Hero? You're coming over. I don't even care. We're going to play tonight. So Octodad, I wanted to bring Octodad back up. This is a game that students of ours at DePaul made. And then they then formed a company and worked for like 4 years just to make the game. And it's such a weird, simple concept. The concept is that you're like 1950s maybe suburban dad that's really an octopus. And everything about the game is about him trying to be normal and human and mow the lawn or make his kid's bed. But it's really difficult to do that when you have tentacles instead of arms and legs. And I tease these guys. I keep telling them that someone's gonna rip them off. Someone's gonna make Squid Cop, right? It's gonna happen, right? Some really ridiculous, funny, hard to control game if they don't do it first. And then last is a more recent favorite. So this is Job Simulator. This is a game being made here in town by Alchemy Labs. It's a virtual reality game. And the premise of the game is that you're in VR, which you really are in VR, but that you're in VR doing your job. And then you have like really mundane jobs like working in an office or working in a convenience store or working in a kitchen. And it's really weird because it's like, you guys just made like a crappy version of real life in VR. But it works. It's fun. It's got that kind of fun that's almost like Wii Sports. You're like, wow, I'm doing a job, right? And it's fun, and here I am. It's new enough I'm telling you about it. I also equate finding new ideas sort of like Pokemon, right? When Pokemon came out, it was also sort of a new idea, right? It was like, took this Tamagotchi thing, and then it combined it with an RPG, and it had turn-based combat, and it was only on the Game Boy. It was like this really weird new thing that just took off and swept the nation. I actually didn't put Pokemon in here just because it was so new, but because of how it relates to looking for ideas. But I was like, yeah, Pokemon, that actually worked. That was like a really new, fresh idea when it happened. But back to ideas, it just takes tons and tons of experimentation to find these new ideas. And it's kind of like catching Pokemon, right? You have to like catch them all and evaluate each one. You like grab an idea and you look at it and you say, are you new? Nah, you're not new. You're like a Pikachu. You're like, get rid of it. You release them back into the wild. And you just keep catching them and looking at it. Are you new? Are you new? Are you new? And then you get one, you're like, yo, Mewtwo. Damn, my dog, he is new. Or he was at one point. And once you have that idea, you prototype it, right? Video game development's all about prototyping. And so you put him in the lab and you work that Mewtwo until it's a fun game. And you know what? If you can't get that game idea to be good enough, well, then you kill him. Or put him in a Pokeball and leave him to die, or whatever you do. But it just takes this constant processing, this constant churn. And you can't get lazy. You can't take your first idea and be like, oh, hey, great, an idea. And then just be like, oh, here it is, my great, wonderful, new idea. You have to be kind of ruthless. Just say, yeah, we did have that idea last week, but you know what? It's just not good enough. Let's keep looking. Let's keep searching. I think a really good way to summarize this is that if you have like an okay idea, you can work it to make it good. In fact, most video games just need constant playtesting, right? Like hundreds of hours of strangers playing the game, telling you if they like it, telling you what's wrong with it, how to fix it, just working it, and just play test, get notes, make a build, play test, make notes, just over and over and over again. But that's on like the good side of the balance. You can't really do that with something new, right? You can't take an old idea and be like, hey, we shined it up. It's now like gold covered Rocket League. It's still an old idea. It's still already been done. And so you have to start with an idea that's new, or at least new enough, early enough, that you can then make it good. So I'm gonna pick on one of my most favorite games, Halo. Right, when the original Halo came out on the Xbox, or even before that when it was announced at Macworld, it looked super new. It was this game, you could run around, you could be a guy on foot and shoot guns, you could jump in a tank, and you could jump in an alien spaceship, and you could explore this kind of mystical, magical, unknown space station, artificial planet thing called a Halo, and it was like pretty special and pretty new. But they've just iterated on it, and the entire industry has iterated on it again and again and again until all of these shooter games just kind of blur together. Right? If you're making a game with big dudes and big guns and big space armor and they go out and they shoot shit, it's going to be really hard to stand out. It's just sort of done. And don't get me wrong, I love these games. I still play them. They still get my money. But I'm not out here telling you, oh yeah, I gotta get that Halo 12. It's gonna be the one. It's just sort of done. And now I'm gonna pick on myself. I'm gonna pick on Stubbs the Zombie, which is a game that we released 10 years ago, just over 10 years ago. And I feel like it's a game that I worked on that's probably the closest to being like, I had a huge amount of influence and impact on the making of the game, and then secondly, I felt like it's like pretty close to being new. All right, so Stubbs, here's the pitch. The pitch is that we've all been playing video games for our whole lives, killing zombies, and Doom, and Resident Evil, and a ton of other games. And you know what? It's the zombies' time. So in Stubbs the Zombie, you get to be the and you run around and you kill the humans and turn them into zombies, and then they do your bid and you kill other zombies for you. Right? Really ridiculous. And at the time, there were no games like that. The notion that you could be a zombie in a video game was foreign. Like people would look at us like, ugh, aren't they the bad guys? Now maybe we should have taken that as a warning. But we were trying to pitch and try to present something really new. And so here's how this game was actually made. So the company, Wide Load in Chicago, was founded by people who started Bungie, right? So they had just made Halo. They started a new company, and so they had the Halo engine. So we had all the source code and all the artwork and everything needed to basically remake Halo. Now, if you remember in Halo, there's a kind of zombie-like enemies called the Flood, and then they show up, spoilers, they show up at the end of the game. But they're kind of nasty dudes, and so what we did technically is we took them and we gave the player all of their abilities, and then we made the humans the bad guys. And you can also take control of enemies in the game, which was a debugging mechanic they had made, right? If they wanted to be like, hey, why can't this character walk from point A to point B? The developers of Halo had a function that they could like go fly into that character and drive him around and make it work. We're like, hey, that's a game mechanic. Let's use our powers to possess an enemy. And then we just got totally nuts, and we set it in a weird 1950s retro future world. It's like a utopian city that's pristine and perfect, celebrating the dawn of the space age. Of course, it gets corrupted by zombies. And it also was a comedy game, and that was a really weird concept at the time. Nobody was trying to make games that were funny, right? This is before Double Fine took off. Before that was even a thing. We were like, yeah, and it's gonna be funny. We were like, zombies? What? It's weird. And so here's how we did it. Not great, right? Stubbs zombies were so-so. I think it locked in the high 70s. The timing was horrible. We came out, I think we were like the last games to release for the original Xbox, right? Like Xbox 360 got announced and shown to the world like the day we were on shelves. It was like horrible, horrible timing. And we had competition. Unbeknownst to us, someone else was working on their own new game. There's this game called Destroy All Humans. Now I'm gonna pitch it to you. Check this out. So you've been killing aliens in video games for years. Finally, aliens are gonna have their due. They're gonna fly down to 1950s Americana, and as the aliens run around, possess people's brains, turn humans against each other, and take over the city. It's like the same game. Even though we thought we were doing something crazy new, they were tapping into the same thing we were, right? Like 1950s horror movies, Red Scare stuff, all those same tropes and veins. This team in Australia, the other side of the world, was making the same game, but with aliens. Their game was better too. It was a better game. It was made by Pandemic, the guys who made the original Star Wars Battlefront, right? So they knew what they were doing. They had the tech, they had the talent. They kind of mopped the floor with us. We were then working on a sequel to Stubbs, because that's what you do, you just slap the number 2 on things. The whole hook of Stubbs was going to be super crazy, which was that in the sequel you could play as either the humans, which everyone told us they wanted to do, or the zombies, and you could then play against each other. That got canceled because the game didn't sell enough. And we missed the boat. And this was before zombies got huge, right? Left 4 Dead, similar game, play as the humans or play as the zombies, play against each other. Wonderful game, one of my most favorites, probably because I was designing it a couple years before that. It came out and then Walking Dead happened, and zombies just were everywhere, and zombies is this huge meme, and Plants vs. Zombies, it's just this giant trope in this thing that like, we're all like, oh yeah, zombies, of course. And 10 years ago, it was just too early. And so I guess my lesson here, this is sort of like my second Uncle Patrick Says slide, is that innovating is risky, right? If you're going after new, you're going to invest a lot of time and a lot of money to make something new. And you can't make everything new. I feel like in Stubbs, we tried to make every single thing about that game new. And it was just like, it was too much. We could have picked 2 or 3 things. Like, yeah, it's like Resident Evil, but you play as the zombies and that's new, and there's a couple cool mechanics, and we could have finished the game a year earlier and maybe beat Destroy Humans out, maybe not come out the week Xbox 360 launch. And yeah, because you just can't afford to innovate everywhere, both in terms of money, because innovation is expensive, and also in terms of brain power, and just kind of explaining an idea. You have to have an idea, like I said, a new idea people just get. Like if I just said, oh yes, Resident Evil, but you're the zombies. Boom, get it. I'd still play that game. I would. All right, so also it being this week, the anniversary of Back to the Future 2, I have to include a Marty McFly slide. And this slide was originally titled The New, but I decided that was probably too much. So just a little brief glimpse at what I think is next in games and what opportunities that's going to present all of us for making things that are actually new. And that's platform transitions, right? Every time there's a platform transition, what I mean by that is that new gaming hardware, new computers come out that can play video games come out. It creates an opportunity for everyone to make new software for it, right? So when the iPhone came out, huge opportunity for people to make new games, right? Not many games that were PC games or console games got ported successfully to the iPhone because it was so different. It's a small screen, had low battery life, had a touch screen, no buttons, right? All these things were different. And so you had the opportunity to create new games, right? Games like Angry Birds, Cut the Rope, Cannibal, right? Games that really worked well on that device. And they stood out, and they felt really fresh, right? The first time I played Angry Birds, I was like, wow, this is actually pretty fun. This is pretty cool. Now, of course, that boat has sailed, right? iPhone gaming is established, and the winners are set, and they've got the App Store down on lock. And so where are the new opportunities for these platforms? And there's 2 areas that really excite me. The first is in virtual reality and augmented reality, VR, AR. And the second is wearables. So, VR feels like it's happening this time, right? The idea started in the 90s, 20 years ago, got really popular in pop culture, and Johnny Mnemonic and The Matrix and all of these things kind of promised us VR was about to happen. It didn't then, but the technology is now good enough that you can play some really cool, fun games in VR. And then wearables. I was looking at some statistics here. You guys know how many these smartwatches and fitness bands and things like that have been sold in the world? Hundreds of millions. Right, to put this in perspective, there's less than 1 million VR headsets out there in the world that can play video games. There's like 600 million wearables out there in the world, right? Fitness bands, smartwatches, smart headphones, pedometers, things like that. And this is a new technology platform that, guess what? It has a screen, or at least some of them have screens. If it has a screen, we can probably play video games on it. And so this is where I think we're presented with opportunities and kind of like low-hanging opportunities to create new things. Okay, so here's the second video. This is a video also from our developer conference of virtual reality games being made in Unity. So let's check it out. This is Bob's video, which I was telling you all about. Valley guys. They're basically making a Mind Valley-esque game. Right, so I didn't handpick those. Those were just the videos that we showed at the conference, and really exciting, like huge diversity of games. I think once you try VR and AR technology, you kind of become a believer in it. And so, if you're interested in learning more about that, definitely check out the VR Austin Meetup. It happens once a month. There's tons of VR demos and people there just as geeky as we are to talk about it. So, check that out. But the thing I want to drive home as I start closing. And this is like a Lord of the Rings 3 endings closing, just so you know, is that it still takes a whole lot of luck to be successful, right? You could say that Stubbs wasn't successful because we were unlucky, right? We were unlucky that Xbox 360 came out when it did. And we were unlucky because Destroy All Humans got made. We were unlucky that Walking Dead didn't start 10 years earlier and make zombies more popular so that we could sell a million copies. But I kind of think that's passing the buck. And I like the concept of luck. I feel very lucky and I feel very fortunate in my career and to have the success I've had. But at the same time, I also think that we worked really hard. And we worked really hard on Stubbs and things didn't pan out. And worked really hard to ship every game I ever worked on. And this is one of my favorite quotes that kind of sums that up, which is that luck happens when preparation meets opportunity. Right, so what that's saying is kind of reckoning back to an earlier slide, right? If you know what you want, you know what your goals are, you know what your purpose is, and you focus on it. And I mean focus, like a monk, like you meditate at night on it, you think about it, you tell everyone you know about it. It is your laser focus. You'll be ready when you hear something that's like a little bit like that, right? If you're like working on, try not to use piñatas, What's that?
Quinceañeras.
If you're working on a quinceañera, and that's your jam, you love quinceañeras, you love Tejano music, you love the dresses, you love the pageantry, you love the cowboy boots.
The food.
The food, how can I forget? If quinceañeras are your jam, right? And you're working on it every day, and someone comes up to you and says, hey, you ever thought about planning a wedding? You're gonna jump at it. You're like, you know what? A wedding is a little bit like a quinceañera, and that is my jam. Right? So all of that quinceañera preparation met the opportunity of someone you knew willing to pay you a little bit of money to help plan a wedding. And that's gonna propel you, right? That's gonna propel you towards your goals, even if it's just a little bit. When we were making console games, and you'll remember this story, we were making console games in the mid-2000s, Austin hit a weird rough patch. Right, where a lot of the console studios were closing and the MMO studios were hiring everybody up, and Neil and I didn't make MMOs. We didn't know anything about that. We're like, we make console games. And so when jobs started opening up in Chicago, we took them. We were like, yeah, I want to make games. That is my path. That is our path in life. And so we moved up to Chicago. And the strange thing is that we met a lot of like-minded people, many from Texas, who had also moved up to Chicago, because that's where the console jobs were at that time. Because we were all focused and we had that purpose. And it's really cool when you meet someone that you have things in common with that shares your purpose. And you're like, dude, you moved thousands of miles away from your family and friends in like Chicago. You know it's cold as hell here, and what's going on? You're like, yeah, dog, games. And you immediately bond with those people, or quinceañeras, whatever it is. So I want to kind of harken back to our Christmas tree, right? Our life cycle of making things, trying to get them to be popular and get people to give you enough money from them so you can keep doing it. And I want to really focus on a common element here. That's this whole middle section is not about you, right? This whole middle section is about other people, right? Yes, making games is hard. Now, it's never been easier than before. It's still hard. But everything else is about everyone else. It's about your friends, it's about your community, it's about our industry. And those are like the most important elements, right? If you make the world's best video game, like ever, and no one likes you enough to play it, you won't make any money, right? If you're so toxic and evil that you repel people from the things that you say or do, or just how gross and distasteful your game is, you'll never get to the bottom. You'll never succeed. And so when I came up making games was a team sport. It took a lot of people to make a video game. And now that making games is easier, a couple of people can make a game, right? Minecraft, made by Notch in his mom's basement alone. But he was successful because of everyone else. He was successful because of everyone who played his game, encouraged him, gave him tips, gave him bug reports, gave him money, and propelled that forward. And I'd like to close by saying that we just have to be nice. Like, this is our community, this is our industry, and if we're just dicks to each other, then none of us are going to succeed. But if you're a nice person, a good person, you listen to your friends when they tell you their goals, you help them with their goals, you're honest and open with them and tell them about your goals, then you have a chance to succeed. And anytime I've had a company or a personal success, it's been because of my work with other people. And anytime I've really fucked up my career badly is when I just got into a dark place, kept it all to myself, and didn't ask for help. So that's my talk. Please just be nice. We'll open up to questions. Drew.
Patrick. My question is about the zombie game that you created.
Yeah.
And for all of us looking to create something new, is there anything you learned from that experience where you could identify that you're on the right path to new, or even more importantly, it might be totally unique, right? And people, some like the new adopters might like it, but like it's not the right new.
Yep. Yeah, great question. How do you know if you're on the right track? Well, sometimes you just get pot committed, right? We had invested money and our publisher had invested money to make this game. We were going to make that game. But a great sign along the way is just, are people talking about it in a positive way, right? If you're telling your friend, you're like, yo, I'm working on this video game, and you play a zombie, and they're like, what? That's dumb. You're like, maybe that's not as new or good as I thought. But if you tell your friends your ideas, or your friends, coworkers, colleagues, investors, and you tell them an idea, and they get excited, and like more ideas start coming out, and you start having a collaborative conversation, that's when you know it's working. So like when I pitched Sugi, which was our company, to Unity, I met the founders and started telling them about it. And they were like, wait, can it do this? We're like, yeah, it can. Like, what about that? Oh, we want to do that next. And like we started having a collaborative conversation. I was like, hey, I think we can work together. But I've had also lots of pitches that are super stone-faced. Like, hey, we're working on this thing, do this, you do this. And we were just like, yep, all right. That probably means that they've heard it all before. And even worse, they may have tried it and failed and know why it's going to fail. And so you have to listen to that. So I think it's important to have conviction in your ideas and defend them and be passionate. But you also have to listen. You have to listen to everyone else. Because, they're really your friends. They'll try to tell you, like, yo, dog, zombie game, 2005, too early.
Thanks.
Yep, John?
So how many people making games have the opportunity to actually do that? Talk to someone who isn't working with them on a project about their project.
Yeah.
I think indies can do that, but not very many other people who are working for a publisher or someone who's paying their bills. I mean, one thing, game developers aren't usually very good at talking about what they're working on anyway, honestly.
It's true.
And within context of everything else. But, and also the feedback they might get might be erroneously skewed.
It definitely could be. I think that's a great point that traditionally, especially coming up in the 90s and the aughties, we were really paranoid. And you just didn't talk about what you're doing. You didn't talk about your ideas. I think we're breaking out of that more. And I think all of us have our secret spy network, right? We have our friends that we trust. We're like, hey, I'm working on this thing. This isn't an NDA, this is friend DA. Let's talk about this. And you can get that feedback. Social media definitely helps. That's way more in public. But then there's also like little private groups. There's private Slacks or private Skype groups and things like that. And so I'd say seek out people who are doing things that you like and that are like-minded, and then just start a dialogue and see if you can't draw that feedback out of them. Yeah.
So I got the feeling throughout most of your talk that the search for the new is, for the most part, linear. But would you say that there is a possibility that it might also be in some way cyclical? Like if there is an idea that was, let's say, 6 platforms old, and you're putting it on a brand new thing, would that be considered new? So like Zork on a wearable?
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. In fact, a friend was just texting me the other day. He's like, dude, text adventure games, I watch, do it. And I was like, yeah, that could be hot. And I think, so this whole talk is about the new. I mean, there aren't new ideas. Like, we're not going to invent something radically new. It's often a new perspective or a new framing. Or like you said, it's old technology represented on something new. And yeah, that's why there's not a hard definition here. You kind of have to feel it out. To comment on your first point, which is that the new is linear, it's true. That's something I've seen work well at game studios is they say, okay, there's 50 of us, we're going to make a game. And it's going to take 50 of us to finish that game. But what we're going to do is we're going to break into 10 teams of 5 people each. And we're going to brainstorm and prototype 10 ideas. And hopefully one of those 10 turns out to be like really good, really new. And then that's the game idea that everyone piles back onto. I've also seen it go horribly wrong and just start huge fights. So proceed with a bit of caution. Yeah, I had a question.
I was wondering, so you mentioned there a little bit of how you do prototyping. In terms of idea generation or brainstorming, what type of tools have you used? I know at one point you did kind of a 30 games in 30 days blog post thing. How was that successful? Or so
brainstorming techniques. I guess I'll comment 2 things. One is that I'm very passionate about regular brainstorming on a schedule. I wrote a talk about it. There's an article on my website about it. You can definitely check that out. And the big idea there was like I had to brainstorm a video game idea every single week, and I had to post it on my website. And if I didn't do that, I'd be embarrassed. And being embarrassed sucks. And so that forced me to just cycle through a ton of ideas and get through crappy ones and get to some good ones, and then get burnt out and go back to crappy ones. The other technique that I really like is I don't like brainstorming in groups, right? So like if we were all to brainstorm a game together, I think it'd be pretty bad because we'd end up yelling at each other and trampling each other's ideas, and like ideas need time to form. And what I like is a situation where you say, okay, hey, you know what? We're gonna brainstorm, and here's the kind of idea we're looking for. Here's what we think is good. Everyone go home. Everyone go think about a new idea that you think is good, and it's like this. And then we're gonna come back and talk about them. Because it's hard to be creative on the spot. I much prefer being creative in private, in the shower, as I'm going to bed, my private moments. And then bringing those ideas back to the group and saying, hey, what about this? Great question. Yes?
Do you believe, or I'm kind of steering away, but do you believe that VR really is the next big thing, or would it be more of, from what I'm seeing is augmented reality seems to be a really big thing right now, especially with the announcement of Pokemon Go, I believe it's called, and there's so much talk with people in their 20s right now that are just waiting for that to happen, and it touches in on the wearables because they're planning to release the watch that lets you know there's a Pokemon nearby, and so you can point your camera and see the Pokemon there while you're walking around.
Yeah, that's super cool stuff. Right now, I still think of VR and AR as one and the same. Like all the technologies that we need for good AR are going to get perfected in good VR first, and then we'll basically take the back cover off and show the rest of the world behind it. And so I'd say anyone who's investing in one is really sort of investing in both, unless you're a hardware company that's specifically making a headset. Like Microsoft has made their bet on AR. They have the HoloLens. That's the big goofy goggles that look like Back to the Future I showed. They believe AR is going to be it, and so that's where all of their research is going. But is it the next big thing? I don't know. I think it could be.
One and the same, pretty much.
Yeah, but I mean, there's a million other things that could be next. Like, I don't know. It could be that like jello-filled pinatas are next. But I think VR has enough traction and enough excitement that it has a pretty good chance of working. Yeah.
So how does Unity as a company mission or a company culture, pivot and adapt to, be ready for the new, and be the #1 tool for people that have that idea and draw inspiration from?
That's a great question. I'll try to answer it two different ways. The first is that I think we're working with every major headset developer in VR and AR. I think. There might be one that I'm not aware of yet, but that's important to us. Unity became popular because it was on every platform, especially iPhone and Android in the early days. And I think that's sort of just part of our culture that we're going to stay on all these platforms. And then how are we prepared for the future? It's a very fluid company. It's a very flatly organized company. And I think good ideas can come from anywhere on our team. And there's some pretty long, epic email threads of 100 people on a topic, and you're like, wow, we're really still going to talk about this. But okay, like no one gets shouted down unless they're saying something just wildly inappropriate. And I think that's important just for being honest with each other. And you can call out some people and be like, yeah, that sounds like BS. You sure that's not BS? And I think you have to do that because, I'm a boss now, and bosses are idiots. So you have to have smart people working on stuff with you. Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about what you see as the opportunities for innovation outside of the game industry? Maybe for some folks, there's a smaller hill to climb than finding a new game mechanic and outside of that.
I don't know, Jim. My curse is that I've focused on video games to the detriment of almost everything else. And that's how I've been able to focus and do what I do. And so if it's not video games or my kids, I'm probably out of the loop.
Well, it's a challenge to talk about it to folks that, that because I think there's a big opportunity in marketing and all kinds of visualizations and, Flash is dead, HTML5 sucks. Unity's the answer for a lot of this stuff, but, the mindset isn't there yet to really see those opportunities. Like you say, they need to get it immediately, right? And some folks don't yet, even though they should. It's changing, though. It feels like there's a lot of excitement around that. But anyway,
I think that just community conversations like this is how we spread the word about ideas and rumors. And after this breaks, the rumor mill will start, right? And all the friend DAs will get exchanged, and you'll hear like what's really going on. You're like, Patrick doesn't know. He's out of the loop. But great question. This one.
I kind of wanted to build upon the opportunities of new things kind of outside of video games directly. Actually, we have Josh Burkhart here, who I think is building upon that's Josh over here. He's building upon a really new idea here in Austin. It's called an esports bar, rec esports bar. And that's kind of, esports is a new thing, and the concept of having a bar around professional video games is completely new too. And so what's your opinion on taking these kind of, new paths to new opportunities beyond video games that video games don't create? The same way as developing a new game?
I think video games are rad, but it's sort of like my hammer. So if I see a nail that's a problem, I'm going to be like, let me whip out my video game hammer and try to solve that. I think some problems like an esports bar, okay, video games can really help. Like, that's going to be a big part of it. Other things, I don't know. I feel like we need community spaces, right? Like Capital Factory is great. They host all these meetups. We can come here. You can basically wander in and find free food if you're ever hungry on a weeknight. That's great. Like, we need that, right? And you're going to run into some smart, interesting people who are also motivated to talk about cool things and have free pizza. So we need community spaces. I think that's really important. There have been dry spells here where we haven't had them. And, John does a ton of work for the IGDA and making sure that and Beer Night is a friendly, welcoming place. And VR Austin is a great meetup. It's vraustin.org. I plugged it earlier. And you just kind of have to come out and talk about that stuff.
So maybe you'll find the new idea at one of these meetups, right? These community spaces always go to them.
Maybe at Esteban's next meetup even.
Yeah.
Gordon?
So it's funny that, you say to the gentleman, hey, I don't know so much about problems like that. I'd like to work on video games. But your company that got acquired by Unity
Exactly.
was about what?
Exactly.
Yeah, all right.
You were solving a problem in a creative way.
Yep.
And the only difference between, solving a problem in a creative way is also solving it in a delightful way.
Yeah.
That makes it more like a game.
All right, so Gordon's calling me on my BS.
Manager now.
No,
I think
that's exactly right. In that you found a way to solve a problem. It's a business problem, really, that game developers have, but in a delightful way. I think that's the key to. When you show these folks that they don't give a shit about games or whatever, but you show them game technology that solves their problem in a delightful way, you're gonna win.
I definitely agree there. But the reason that we were able to make technology that was good enough for Unity to buy it is because we had been game developers. And we'd been through the slog and suffered so hard, and we knew how badly we knew it. And if I had been young when I first started, I would have never been like, oh, I'm gonna make build automation tools because that's sexy, right? No, I made them because the first day I saw Unity in the iPhone, I was like, it takes 15 minutes to do this? No way. I know how to write a bash script. Yeah.
I had another question. Actually, where's the guy that was talking about the esports bar?
He's in the back. Josh is in the back.
That guy Josh is the one that's.
Oh, cool. So you mentioned the VR as being the new platform, and I guess this is kind of a blend of that idea and also my point about cyclical new hunting. Do you predict that there's going to be something like a resurrection of the arcade to meet this new platform's demand infrastructure-wise for new consumers? Because as it currently stands, really, really good immersive VR is not cheap.
Right.
GTX 980s do not grow on trees.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if you think that there is going to be a spot for something similar to an arcade specialized for this new platform to come in to help adoption.
Okay, that's a great question. I'm really biased on this one because I worked in Austin's first VR arcade in 1996. And we had a couple of the Amiga virtuality machines, and we had a LAN of PCs. You could play Dark Forces and Descent, and it was like a cyber internet bar, way cutting edge. And the challenge is that the VR equipment was really expensive. It broke down all the time. Once a piece breaks, it's on order, and you have to wait to replace it. And if anyone walks into your arcade and they can't play your main attraction, they leave. They don't stick around to have a coffee or a beer. So it was a hard business, right? So if I walk into an arcade and they don't have Street Fighter 3 Third Strike, I'm out. That's it. And so it is particularly challenging. And I think right now VR is changing so rapidly that you could buy a ton of badass graphics cards and Vives and set it all up, and then find in 6 months that it's actually the Oculus 4 that's the winner. And that's a hard hardware investment. So I would love for there to be a VR arcade, and I would go there, but it's a rough business. Yeah?
What do you think about immersion droning?
Immersion droning. I haven't done it yet. I'd love to try it. It sounds cool. Drones kind of freak me out, but that's because I'm a software guy. Hardware, yeah.
Can you tell us what emergent droning is?
Oh, it's where you look up a drone and remember the old video arcade where you put the heart at them and it's the same process.
And they have a couple companies here in Austin. There's actually one in WeWork.
Right, so it's like you're flying a drone around the world, but then you're seeing what the drone sees through VR. Think is the idea?
You're reacting real time and it's moving with you and the camera is panning. It's sort of like a GoPro situation.
Yeah.
Driving your own body in third person.
That sounds pretty cool.
Because you're chasing that high.
Yeah.
You want that rush.
Sure, yeah. Yeah.
So you're talking about how it's super easy it's still hard, but 1 or 2 people to start up and start working on something. But also you're saying, don't take the first idea that you have and kind of put all your eggs in the basket.
Yep.
Like how, especially when you first get into this and decide a tool like Unity or something, the first thing that you latch onto is kind of your baby that you've learned with,
Yeah.
How do you stay objective and possibly let go of that?
You kill that baby. No, I mean, really what I think you have to do is you have to ship it. I think shipping is the ultimate release. And it is like having a baby. I mean, like you can have postpartum after shipping a game, right? When you've worked on it for 3 years and it comes out and it gets solid 75s, it's pretty painful. But you get over it by shipping. And so I think if you make lots of little games that you can constantly ship, each one you're going to get a lot better. But if you stay in secret, you polish your golden egg, and no one ever sees it or touches it, you're never going to learn lessons 2, 3, 4, and 5. So I would say make lots and lots of little games and ship all the time. All right, a couple more questions. Finn.
So what's next? Are you gonna do some more cool like blog run of cool creativity? What's next?
Yeah. Okay. So that new.
That new.
Yeah. So that weekly game idea blog I did was also 10 years ago. So I'm going to start blogging again. I think I've been convinced to blog about running a studio, which is really difficult. And it's also the thing I'm probably most terrified to write about, but I'm going to give it a shot. And so game plan is 52 blog entries on that next year.
I was thinking of doing a 30 game in 30 days, but a collaboration thing. So it's like 30 brainstorms with different developers that I could do it with or something. You know, that'd be like a cool thing.
That would be awesome.
When do we get asset bundles on Unity?
Yeah. We're gonna All right, we got time for one more question?
Sorry. So I've heard you say this before, and it ties into what this guy over here has been asking about. There are a lot of people I know who do what you do, but not everyone is doing what you're doing right now, standing up in front of a whole bunch of people talking at length about what it is. I've heard you say exactly what it was. You realize you're working with a lot of different people that maybe all got laid off, and you realize that it was worth it to keep talking to them and keep a good rapport with them.
Yeah.
How many game developers, or where did they even start to like do what you're doing right now, other than what you've already said, which is ship, talk, and do it until you get good at it? Because some people want to do it right now. Like they got a great idea, but they don't know how to make money, get money for it. They don't know how to find an audience for it or do any of that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think the answer is just do it. And if you don't know how, find someone who does know how to do it that's willing to teach. And sometimes it can just be a cup of coffee or a beer, or just bumping into them strategically 18 times. I mean, I'm going to bring it back, but if you know what you want and you are focused on it like a monk, and when those opportunities present themselves, you're going to jump and take those opportunities. And a lot of that is about everybody else. It's about the people and, you know, making them remember you and making them remember that you're nice.
Underline.
The end.
Everybody at the jury, just another round of applause. I think that was a wonderful I'd like to just open the room to just casual talk, networking. We'll be doing a badge raffle for South by Southwest real soon. I'm going to go grab the basket for that. If you happen to not have put your business card in there, please come up here in a minute to do so. I'm going to also write my email up here again if you have any questions or concerns about South by Southwest, or if you'd like to learn more about future South by Southwest Gaming Spotlights. I'd love to talk about that. So thank you all for attending the first South by Southwest Gaming Spotlight.